Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Order.
Item 1. Consideration of the estimates for the financial year 1st April 2022 to 31st March 2023 in the Committee of Supply, third allotted day.
Head S, Ministry of Manpower, Mr. Desmond Choo.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the total sum to be allocated for Head S of the estimates be reduced by $100. COVID precipitated sudden and pervasive changes to how we work, why we work, and what we want at work. Our manpower policies must adjust dynamically to such structural changes. The Singapore workforce and the manpower policy system that supports the workforce are core national assets. Without our world-class workforce, companies would not invest more, and there will be no continued creation of good jobs. It is a critical pillar to Singapore's success. Businesses and investors, both local and overseas, watch our manpower policies closely for the same reason. It requires years of building, innovating, and fine-tuning this manpower system. It is inherently complex, balancing sometimes diametrically opposite intentions and expectations. For example, we need to strengthen our Singaporean core, but not lose access to talent needed for Singapore to be competitive. We need to create good work opportunities for locals without starving businesses of the manpower to grow and survive. We must grow our economic pie, but not weaken our compact with workers. I will speak on structural changes from COVID and how we need to respond to survive and thrive in the new world order while navigating difficult policy tensions. Digital and technological changes driven by COVID-19 have created many jobs, but also destroyed many others. We can no longer take sustained full-time employment for granted. The rapid growth of platforms or marketplace work has created a much bigger group of gig or contract workers. And these workers do not have mandated CPF contributions. Workers are not likely to stay in full-time or traditional employment for as long as before. How can the ministry continue to safeguard the retirement adequacy of our workers amidst such structural changes? Now, workers might not be accumulating CPF savings consistently, or there might be disruptions to building up the retirement nest when they do gig or contract work. It is tempting to ask for flexibility in withdrawals to make up for lost income. But this comes at the expense of retirement adequacy. The complexity deepens with volatile investment climate. With increasing investment uncertainty, how can the CPF board still ensure good returns for our workers? There has been a pervasive shift towards greater focus on skills rather than jobs. Now, this was precipitated by a global marketplace where skills rather than occupations or academic qualifications reap ever higher economic rent. Now, this trend will only intensify. There are three implications. First, our foreign manpower system must gradually pivot to accord greater weightage to skills when giving out work passes. This strengthens complementarity with our local workforce. Second, how do we employ artificial intelligence in our work pass system to identify skills and bring in foreign manpower that creates better value for Singapore? Third, for employers, it is more relevant and intuitive to hire based on skills rather than job titles or school qualifications. But the default is still rather traditional, relying on presumed hiring certainty of job titles. How can the ministry help businesses to develop a new dimension in hiring and rewarding for skills? Next, on the Great Resignation. Since the early part of 2021, the developed world has seen resignation of workers en masse. COVID-19 has stretched on long enough for workers to re-examine their careers, working conditions, reward system and purpose. This was particularly stark amongst the younger workers. Many were as concerned about the work's prospects as they are about wellness. Their definition of success has changed. The perhaps already archaic 5 Cs that were once deemed as a Singaporean dream is now overtaken by other non-traditional aggregators of success, such as work-life balance and purposeful careers aligned to their passions and aspirations. This has far-reaching consequences for the workforce and workplace. First, the importance of wellness as a capability within the workplace. Over the years, there are decreasing number of jobs that pose physical harm and safety worries as Singapore develops into a service and higher tech economy. However, mental stress hits all of us, regardless of industries. Globally, companies have introduced well-being programs in the wake of the pandemic. These programs help employees with mental health and physical health. The improvements in personal outcomes have a direct impact on productivity and retention. Now, wellness goes beyond just providing yoga classes during lunchtime. A well-designed employee wellness framework looks at mental health education, work practices aligned to creating a safe and empowering environment. We certainly neither envisage legislating wellness within the Workmen Injury Compensation Act, nor is it wise to do so at this point, without understanding the issue better. In Sweden, there's a concept of fika. It roughly means drinking coffee, eating sweet or savory pastries, and chatting with co-workers. There's even a sequence to doing fika. One starts with cinnamon buns and ends with a princess cake. Many companies have mandatory designated fika time. The Swedes see this as an essential part of managing work stress. This is not to say that mandating fika, or in our context, kopi breaks, is that panacea to our workplace issues. There is a bigger cultural and work construct to it. And fika is possibly that symbolic reminder of the need for work-life balance. The takeaway is that we can no longer treat employee mental wellness as just a good to have if we want to deal with changing workplace demands. Bigger and bolder moves are needed. Now, second, the bliss or curse of the hybrid workplace. Now, some workers like it, others detest it, but nearly all can see the value of working from home. Now, COVID forced most companies to have their workers to work from home, but few have well-developed hybrid workplace policies. Thus, work time and place become increasingly and agonizingly blurred. Where it was a flexible work arrangement that workers have been craving for years, it is now a bane, especially for younger workers. The solution is also not to bring all workers back to the office. Workers have experienced a savings on commuting, and employers do save on office rental. What we need to establish is a national code of practices so that workers and employers can have a common understanding on how to make hybrid workplaces work. Now, according to a 2021 CNBC SurveyMonkey Workforce Survey, nearly 80% of workers want to work for a company that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, this might not fully reflect the situation in Singapore, but there is clearly greater desire among younger workers for similar aims. Workers increasingly want their companies to take a position on such matters. Last year, we made a big stride in signaling our intention to enshrine the tripartite guidelines on fair employment practices into law. This is a clear signal that Singapore does not tolerate discrimination in workplaces. This move underpins a whole-of-nation desire for greater inclusivity. Can the ministry provide us with an update on this move? Now, while the law provides for minimal standards, we need to push the front end of the charge for greater inclusivity. We need to look into establishing public indices so that companies can benchmark their progress. This can provide for broader and faster progress in the important issue of inclusivity. Next, going green is no longer a tagline, but a real driver of change in the workforce. The green economy will be a key driver in the global economy. We have the Green Plan 2030 to advance our pursuit of sustainable development. We must now prepare our workers for this transition. Some jobs in the petrochemical sector might indeed be lost. Other opportunities might take their place. Can the ministry outline its plans to prepare our workers to transition into the green economy? The proliferation of remote working has shrunk the global workplace into one global connected office. Physical presence at the workplace is no longer tied to productivity. During the deepest of COVID, many companies have started sourcing services from overseas for work that used to be done here in Singapore. Remote working has allowed them to capitalize on global talent pools, saving costs, and even rental costs of office spaces. Now, while this means that the workforce is now presented with global opportunities, the converse is also true. Our workforce now faces greater competition, competing for jobs with counterparts from across the globe. How will the ministry continue to ensure that the Singaporean workforce remains a strong value proposition to the businesses, especially that of the MNCs? Building a robust and dynamic workforce and policy system is a multi-year effort. There can be short-term adjustment issues. For example, implementing an increase in minimum qualifying salaries for work passes can indeed result in some work pass holders to get a bump in wages. But adjustment to dependency ratios and the longer run signals will help locals get better wages and a higher quality foreign workforce. Therefore, we must be careful not to avoid longer range changes because of shorter term pains. As we debate the cuts, we must be mindful of the strategic imperatives in building a great workforce and the inherent policy tensions. With this, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move.